Race fans, it's once again time for the traditional singing of Back Home Again in Indiana. And once again, it is my privilege to introduce to you Mr. Jim Neighbors. Back home again in Indiana, and it seems that I can see the gleaming candlelight still burning bright through the sycamores for me. The new moon hay through the fields I used to roam. When I dream about the moonlight on the wabash, how I long for my Indiana home.
As the traditional balloons ascend into the air, thank you to Jim Neighbors.
Good evening once again, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another night of iRacing action here on the National Racing Network, where tonight it will be the stars and cars of the iRacing Silver Crown Cup, coming to you from the world's greatest race course, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. My name is Chris Graham, joined in the booth, as always, by Mr. Patrick Byrne. It is Memorial Day week, and that means we are 6 days away from the greatest spectacle in racing. Ari Leyendyke holds the track record here, 37.895 seconds. There is not a prayer they are going to get near that tonight. But you can hear the cars starting to roar around here on qualifications. And let's pick up the guy carrying number one here, Mr. Derek Love, making his way off into turn number one. And Bizzle, I know you talk about how this place stinks and all the other crap that you're just garbage for, but this truly is one of those places that I get goosebumps thinking about racing here. And you come to this racetrack on Memorial Day week, there's just a little bit of extra juice for every one of these guys in this show tonight.
I have had the privilege to come to the Speedway for the Indianapolis 500. I've been here when this track was completely empty. I have stood on the front straightaway. I did not kiss the line of bricks, but this place is absolutely magical. I would put this place up there with Disneyland in the feeling of just magic when you see the gates up front. It is a feeling that you can't put into words.
I was with you on that tour. We stopped at the Yard of Bricks. Neither one of us kissed them. But I literally cried right here. Right, that tunnel in between the short chute between turns 1 and 2 made me cry. The history, everything that goes into the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, when the place is empty, it draws an emotional reaction. And now, tonight, we're going to get to see a car that has never run here, excuse me, will never run here in the real world, but they are going to put on as good of a show as what you're going to see in the real world on Sunday. These cars will be draft locked about the entire way around this place.
This place is going to be absolutely nuts for the Silver Crown. It's going to be nuts in the real world, too. As much as I hate this track, it's one of the must-watch races of the year for me. And there's just so much history that's happened at this place. It'll be the 108th Indianapolis 500 this coming Sunday. You just can't put it into words what this track has done for motorsports. This is Mecca for a motorsports fan. If you have not been here to see an Indianapolis 500, you got to get to do it before you die. It holds 350 or so thousand people. in these stands. There's room for you. You got to get down here and watch it.
Yep, the world's largest single-day spectator sporting event is Josh Batista. Almost visits the pit attenuator. Oh, he blanked out on his second qualifying lap. He was already at the top of the charts. Lap number 2 will be just a tick slow, but a great number for Batista. 51.420 is the second lap for Batista. As we have Nick Hart as the last car on the racing surface that will get to complete a qualification lap. And how about it, Bizzle? A really good strength of field that, quite frankly, was, I think, brought down by participation. 33-33 is the estimated SOF, but 38 cars across 2 splits. We've got 19 and 19. That's just awesome.
It's Indy week. People know what Indy means.
That is very much
I'll
true.
tell you this. If these cars were still running the Speedway, Indy cars still looked like this instead of the super high downforce wing beast they do now, I would change my opinion about this track. This track is freaking cool without wings. When you have to step on the brakes to get into these 9-degree bank corners, that's what makes this track really good, really racy, and you're going to see a ton of fun here tonight.
You get a sponsor, you get a car, and you go take your rookie test, and you run the Indy 500.
That's exactly
God,
right.
that is my second favorite ever Robin Miller quote.
Yes, I don't think we can play the first one yet. Although, if somebody does something really dumb, I might play it just for the laxatives and giggles.
Absolutely. I mean, now I live real close to Cleveland now, and that famous quote happened right up the road here on Burke Lakefront Airport property, right on Lake Erie.
That is correct. If you know, you know. Quite frankly, I would love to see iRacing do a kind of a Brian Clausen double on Sunday, run a Indy 500, and then immediately, like an hour later, you have to run a non-wing dirt sprint car race at Kokomo. That would be awesome. The Brian Clausen double. Finish the 500, hop in the car, haul ass, and get your ass to Kokomo. Oh, it's so good.
Kokomo is on the bucket list of tracks to get to.
Miss seeing the late, great Brian Clausen out on the racetrack. But we will talk a little bit about some of the good that came from his passing here in just a little bit. But first, we need to take a look at the starting grid for tonight's race, because the pace car is about ready to roll. Starting on the pole with a lap time of 51.385 seconds, it is Josh Batista in the red Ream rocket. Happy Ream noises coming out of Sign-On and some of the other commenters here. Starting on the outside of the front row, a very IndyCar paint scheme. The Johns Manville Menard Stanley Tools Moen number 2, belonging to New York's Thomas Lewandowski. Row number 2 of the grid will have the Team Watson Racing Setups National Racing Network Martin Sports Boomer Button Boxes number 5 of James Watson. That car will have the 39 on the livery. On the outside, the Team Watson Racing Setups National Racing Network number 14 of Brazil's Nietzsche Camargo. Derek Love in the Street Side Classics number 1, lining up inside of row number 3. To his outside, number 94 Napa Auto Parts, Rockwell, North Carolina. Entry of Charlotte, North Carolina's Jeffrey Stanton. That car will be the number 4 in timing and scoring. Row number 4, the 17 of Nelson Yelinsky, the Pure Michigan, number 17. And on the outside, the TNT Racing, number 13 of South Carolina's Todd Taylor. Laura Gerhardt in the Kibu, number 11, out of Germany, lining up inside of row number 5. And on the outside, the number 9 of Joseph Smith from Texas. Row number 6. You could see a race winner come out of this row tonight. The Dees Farms, Driven to Save Lives, number 3 of Brandon Buckberger. And on the outside, the number 10, Me Fine, T. Watson Racing Setup Smart Sports, number 10 of Zach Evans. Drew Bernardi and Chris Wetz making up row number 7. Row 8 on the grid, Colby Mann and Robbie Swan. Love the Western Auto throwback on Robbie Swan's car. Scott Schroeder and Stephen C. Thompson on row number 9, and all alone on row number 10 will be Michigan's Nick Hart. Field is making their way through turn number 4. Pace car will make the hard left-hand turn, and the first lap of this one is going to be all yours. will go in the books, and it will belong to Josh Batista over the yard of bricks for the first time. 1 down, 39 left to go. And Bizzle, I think you were about to say something right as we were about to go green.
Yeah, I was going to ask if we were going to talk about how we totally didn't break into the Boston Race Shop while we were in Indianapolis.
Tim, if you're listening, this story is 100% accurate. I promise we didn't touch anything. But yes, we sort of were breaking and entering into the Clausen Marshall racing shops. We went out to go see Tim.
The door was unlocked.
The door was unlocked. We knocked. Nobody answered.
Lights were on.
Lights were on. Trucks in the parking lot. Like, there were people in the building somewhere. We pulled on the front door, and the front door opened. So we kind of walked in, took a peek, and we're like, oh, shit, I don't think we should be here. There's literally nobody in this building.
Lap number 2 in the books, working lap number 3 now, and Lewandowski's closing the gap on Josh Batista.
Yeah, Lewandowski tightening things up a little bit at the front. Brandon Buckberger making up a little bit of ground here as well on Nelson Yalinsky. Seeing just back behind, Joseph Smith trying to work on Laura Gerhardt. Not much happening there. Jeffrey Stanton inside in the AJ Camargo. He will pick up position number 5. And this is a race where everybody from about behind Derek Love is going to have to be good. Oh, but Camargo's in the wall, exiting 4.
It's in the attenuator.
And Smith goes around. Oh, hold on to it. Great save time, Taylor. Wow. Oh, my goodness. Several incredible saves. That all started with AJ Camargo getting a little bit loose and up into the turn 4 wall. Wow, big hit into the attenuator for Joseph Smith. And great save for Chris Wentz.
I don't know if Joseph Smith got loose and hit the attenuator, or if he just swerved and overcorrected trying to get away from AJ Camargo and ended up just driving it straight into the attenuator. Can we get an onboard cam with his car?
Yes, we can. Ask and you shall receive.
Yeah, just swerves to get away from it and right into the outside or the inside retaining wall there. Little early for an attenuator party here, man. I think they call that premature attenuation.
We do, and yeah, it's definitely not a good spot to be in here. Now, Field getting themselves way jumbled up here as the iRacing safety car finally makes its appearance exiting turn number 2. Field had to really grab the brakes there, and that can turn into a mess in these cars as well. Anytime you have to get on the brakes hard is not good in these cars.
No, and it's not good at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. The last time cars have had to get on their brakes very hard was probably the early 1970s. Anytime after that, if you're hard on the brakes, you're already in the wall.
That is something that Rick Mears has argued for literally at this point a couple of decades at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, is the cars have to have enough power and lack enough grip that you have to lift and maybe even touch the brakes.
You have to introduce Rick Mears properly, though. The same way we introduce Haley Deegan, Rick Mears is one-time TNT special event starter.
No, that was Roger Mears, his brother.
I could have sworn Rick was in that race, too.
No, I don't think Rick Mears has ever sat behind the wheel of a simulator. I would be shocked. Even the stuff that Penske has in North Carolina and all, I would be floored if Rick Mears has ever sat in one of those simulators. That is very much not his vibe. The guy wears flip-flops everywhere he goes, and he's just chill. I mean, when you're 4-time Indianapolis 500 champion Rick Mears, life is going to be pretty chill anyway. But that was always kind of his style, coming out of Bakersfield and the dirt jumpy trucks before making the switch over to Indy cars.
Of 4-time Indianapolis 500 champions, I still need to mail out my bathroom sign to get signed by AJ Foyt.
Yes, you do. I don't think we're allowed to say what your bathroom sign says, but it did come from the AJ Foyt wine vault, or the racing shop, or whatever it was. It came out of AJ Foyt's bathroom.
Yes, and it is the greatest sign I have ever bought.
Well, actually, okay, hold on. We'll tell what it is. Call it what it is. It's a mirror that hung in the bathroom.
No, it's not a mirror. It's a picture.
Oh, it's just a picture. Okay, I thought it was a mirror. It's a picture that says...
It very simply just says, please don't do Coke in the bathroom.
I don't know why.
Like, don't drink your Coca-Cola in the bathroom.
That is exactly right. But yeah, the AJ Foyt crew, it was hilarious. I think we were in like the race shop and they were doing a kind of like a local vendors thing or something, but that was one of the signs that was available for purchase. I don't know how many other stories we can tell from PRI week, quite frankly, but...
Oh, there were a lot of good stories that weekend. We spent, 3 days in Indianapolis and probably created a lifetime of stories?
That is correct. Yeah, we were only there, like you said, kind of 3 days, and wild fun. Yeah, that's about where I think I'm going to leave it.
Yeah, I don't know if we can talk about anything else that happened.
Nope. Statute of limitations has not worn out on some of these. This field's making their way through the short chute. They are back onto the home straight, waiting for the pace car to dive in. It is a very late pit entry. Look at that, drifting. The pace car on the pit lane.
Pace car.
Wow, slow start for Batista. Oh, that was a Colton Herta start if I've ever seen one. Everybody stacked up. Brandon Buckberger.
Tell you what, though, it's going to work for him. Gap already up to almost 0.4 of a second for Josh Batista.
Yeah, the only thing is it may be too much of a gap because Watson is right up under the tail tank of Lewandowski, Derek Love, Jeffrey Stanton. They're all nose to tail. They're going to catch Buckberger in a hurry.
Even though Lewandowski's not running the TWRS colors, he's very much aligned with that James Watson 39 car and all the rest of the TWRS team. So those two are going to work together and try and get by Batista. Also, is that another solo Jazz car I see that back there in the pack?
That is. Chris Wetz is running the solo Jazz machine again.
And look at this. Lewandowski gets by Batista very cleanly in the turn number 1, and Batista is looking to the inside to see if he can get by again, but I think he's too close to set the slingshot up in turn 3 here. He's going to look to the inside anyway.
Well, let's see. Who is Watson going to go with? Watson's going to stay there with Lewandowski, but he's going to run the inside lane. Lewandowski able to slide back down. He's going to try to cross over on Batista into 4.
And Watson's going to follow him right through. Wise move by Watson to check up a little bit and stay behind Lewandowski. That's going to work for him, and he clears Josh Batista. Derek Love's going to be side by side now.
Yeah, Derek Love getting the big run. Batista, I wonder if he didn't get a little bit loose exiting turn 4 that time. Either that or the push up the wall, very kind of J.R. Hildebrand. You get a little bit outside the groove here, and bad things will happen.
Over the course of this 2.5 mile speedway, only 2.5 miles, Josh Batista has dropped from the lead spot all the way down outside of the podium.
And now Lewandowski trying to break the draft a little bit here. That car is showing some outright pace on James Watson as he's got the gap up to about a quarter of a second. Call it 4 car lengths as they come through turn number 4 this time. Something to keep an eye on throughout this race will be the weather conditions. Track temperature sitting at 108 degrees, but 81% relative humidity. Very heavy air. I know we don't talk about it a ton, but with this new Tempest weather system, it absolutely plays a part in the handling characteristics of these race cars.
Yeah, the advantage of the warm, humid air is there's going to be a little bit more downforce with these cars, and they don't make very much at all. You have that little front bumper there at the front. That puts a little bit of weight on the front tires, but more importantly, you have 2 little ducktails that come off in front of the rear tires. Those will probably produce 150 to 200 pounds of downforce, but it is just enough to keep these things planted to the ground.
Yeah, there you got a good look at those little, almost like winglets, just in front of the rear tires there on Thomas Lewandowski's machine. Field kind of doing the snake down the front straightaway.
I always thought we called it a dragon. I guess a snake is cool too.
I don't know. Either way, I hate it. Once you make a move, you've made your move. That's the line you got to run. So, in Lewandowski, that's the lane he's chosen to enter turn 3 from.
See, I think you should be able to move back up to the wall before you reach the corner. But snaking back 3, 4, 5 times down the straightaway, that's just not good racing. Derek Love going to take the long way around Watson here, coming out of turn 4. Will he get the run down the straightaway? Down the 3/4 mile long drag race to turn number 1. I think Derek Love's going to clear him. And Watson, yeah, he's dropping like a rock a little bit, going to lose all the way back to 5th.
Well, yeah, that's the draft coming into play. Thought I heard one car sliding. Now, check this out. Derek Love and Josh Batista are basically connected down the 5/8 of a mile long back straightaway. Batista just kind of releases off the bumper before entry to the corner. And if he gets turn 4 right, he'll be right hooked back up again.
Couple cars getting into that outside wall between turn 3 and 4. Usually you don't hit that wall. If you're going to hit one of the short shoot walls, it's usually exiting turn number 1 that you smack the outside retaining wall.
Well, that's something that the drivers have talked about. All these 4 corners, geometrically, they are identical. 9 degrees, 12 minutes. The radius is identical. Everything about this are 4 identical corners that could not drive differently from each other. Just completely different how you approach them.
You have to think of how immense this track is. You can take the entirety of Vatican City, copy it 5 times, so 6 total copies of Vatican City, and fit it in the infield. The infield is 6 times larger than Vatican City. You have 4 different weather events going on in each corner of this track.
One car way up into the outside wall. I think that was Scott Schroeder. It was. He's making his way down pit lane. A big hit, but nice save for Scott Schroeder.
Yeah, those grandstands, they keep turn 1 and turn 4 in the shade. But the exit of turn 1 is not shaded, and it gets very tight where the pavement is very, very hot, and that'll send you into that outside wall. Turn number 2 is completely in the sun. It's a very, very tight corner. Same thing. You'll hit the wall entering the back straightaway. Turn 3, you're going to push going into the corner, but then you have the grandstands again, shading part of the track. It gets nice and cool. Car gets gripped up, and you'll actually take some steering wheel out of it to bring the car up to that outside wall. And then turn 4, you can send it just about as hard as you possibly can as long as you're not in the draft of another car. J.R. Hildebrand learned that lesson in 2011. so close to winning the Indy 500, and unfortunately passing a lapped car. Got into that outside retaining wall, exiting turn number 4, and gave the win to Dan Weldon. Would be his final Indianapolis 500 victory.
The final IndyCar win for Dan Weldon. And JR was passing a good friend of his in Charlie Kimball. One of the most iconic moments in Indianapolis history. Only the second time that the pass for the win happened after turn number 4. The first time being Sam Hornish Jr. passing Marco Andretti on the front stretch.
Marco Andretti, you just got to feel for him at Indy 2. I mean, living on with the Andretti curse of just not being able to get a win to occur. I mean, anything and everything that could go wrong with the Andrettis here in Indianapolis has happened, except for 1969 when Mario won it.
Yeah, the Bronner Hawk, which, if you're visiting Speedway, Indiana this week, the Bronner Hawk that is on display is not the race-winning race car. That's actually in the Smithsonian. But a basically perfect replica of that car is on display out there as Brandon Buckberger comes around Derek Love for position number 2. And let's get the close-up here on that number 3 Dean's Farms machine, because one of the other sponsors on that car is Driven to Save Lives, founded in memory of the late, great Brian Clausen and Justin Wilson, originally founded after Justin Wilson's passing back in 2016. 2015, I forget which, but
August 24th, 2015 is when he passed. August 23rd was the crash. 24th is my birthday. I remember it so well.
The Organ Donation Awareness Program of Driven to Save Lives has quite literally saved or helped heal tens of thousands of lives across the country. I am an organ donor. I would encourage you to at least think about it, have the discussion with your family if you are so inclined, and visit driven2savelives.org. That's driven, number 2, savelives.org for more information and how you can make your choice known. But really just incredible stuff. And Brandon Buckberger, for the last couple of seasons, has been donating money based on race winnings, $150, I think, last season. $50 for every win, $10 for every runner-up finish, $5 for third. A very cool deal that Brandon Buckberger is doing for the Driven to Save Lives team.
It'd be super cool to see him win here at Indy. Lewandowski is running away from the field. This draft train is only going to fall so far back before they start catching him. All of these guys have gotten in the line pretty well now. They're not fighting with each other. And you see just in that mile and a half that we just watched, they closed the gap by 0.2 of a second. With 20 laps left to go in this race, that is plenty of time to catch up to Lewandowski and absolutely freight train by him.
The number is sitting at, it's back up to about 1.9 seconds. And at this point, I don't know that anybody has the outright pace to compete with Lewandowski. You almost have to think there's some secret sauce going on in that setup for Lewandowski, whether it's rake of the car or something. Because it's I would say very similar to what you have to do with a Lotus 79 here. The 79, because it's a ground effect car, you have to get it off the ground. Ordinarily, you think race cars, you want them as low as possible. But the ground effects, you're actually trying to break the ground effect in the Lotus 79. So you get the car off the ground. That's what makes it go faster. You have to think there's something, kind of like I said, kind of special saucy in what Lewandowski has under that car.
Not only that, the special sauce might also be the nut behind the wheel. Indianapolis, being a 2.5-mile speedway, you would think it's flat out in these cars, but you are hitting the brakes here in the Silver Crown. You are very much driving this like a road course, and a guy who's really good at the speedway and knows this track inside and out might be able to pull away from the pack just based on he's able to get through the corners faster and maybe doesn't have as straightaway speed as that peloton behind him. But through the corners, just able to carry so much speed just because he knows where to hit the apex, knows where to turn in, knows where to apply the throttle again, and is able to pick up another mile an hour or two that negates that draft effect down these straightaways.
Yeah, I mean, you're literally talking, if you can find a quarter of a tenth in every quarter. So, what, 25 thousandths of a second?
Yep.
You're going to gain a tenth over the course of a lap.
And we saw qualifications. Graham Rahal made it into the Indianapolis 500 by less than a margin of that. It was what, 50-something thousandths of a second? Separated 33rd
like
from
that.
34?
Yep. It was crazy how tight qualifying was. And quite frankly, you have to wonder, and I'm hearing some rumblings, quite frankly, about not just the Penske cars, but teams that were playing with the boost a little bit. Oh, as Chris Wetz gets up into the outside wall. Actually, Nelson Yalinsky was the car up into the wall. Bouncing it off the turn 4 wall. That will not be good for the aerodynamics. Slide back in the pack a little bit and show you Colby Mann and Zach Evans. They're battling for position number 12.
Yeah,
and that's really the only other battle.
Not quite a new track record set for qualifying this year. However, Scott McLaughlin became the fastest pole winner in the history of the Indianapolis 500. Ari Leyendijk's lap does not count because that was achieved on Bup Day, not pole day.
Correct. It was a day 2 qualification. And throughout the history of the race, there have been several drivers that have done that. Gary Bettenhausen is one that comes to mind in 92, maybe? No, that was Roberto Guerrero's year. 93, 94, maybe? Or 91, I guess it was. Anyway, Gary Bettenhausen setting the fastest qualification time, but it was even on like day 3 of qualifications. It used to be the month of May. It was truly the month of May. The track opened for practice on May 1st, whatever day that was, and they practiced every day with the exception of Mother's Day. Took Mother's Day off, and the track was open from like 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. every day, or I guess 10 to 5 or something like that. And they would stick the gun out the windows.
Derek Love getting super loose, almost entering the pit lane.
Good Lord, the Joseph Newgarden line.
Really, can we get an onboard replay of that? I want to see how close he was to smacking the attenuator on the way back up to the circuit.
Let's see. Go on board here with Derek Love.
Just starts getting loose before he even enters turn number 4. Oh man, it doesn't look all that close on camera, but that is too close for comfort. Going almost 180 miles an hour, and that wall is barreling at you very quick. The Silver Crowns don't turn right very well at all. They don't turn left very well at all either, but they turn left a hell of a lot better than they turn right.
Love,
and Derek Love
save.
loose again.
That was contact with Chris Wetz that time.
Closer the second time. His third time going to be the charm. Are we going to have to watch Derek Love? Is he going to hit the attenuator on lap number 26 exiting this lap? That car, you can see the damage on the right front quarter of that thing. That car is hurt. I don't think it's driving very well for him.
No, you can see it. That little bit of damage is race ending at a place like the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And Love back into position number 7 now. Oh, as one car got up into the outside wall. Oh, and it's Josh Batista. Batista hit the outside wall exiting turn 4.
And you can see the same damage on the right front of Batista's car. That Red Ream rocket is no longer a rocket ship. That might be a Soyuz module, but it's not a NASA rocket ship.
It's a Shenzhou. That's the Chinese space program, by the way. But now all these cars bouncing off the wall is starting to separate things out a little bit here. But with 14 laps to go, the gap was shrinking. It was down to 1.5 seconds. In fact, that's what we're seeing on one of our timing and scoring screens right now, is about 1.5 seconds separating Thomas Lewandowski from Brandon Buchberger.
Going back to Indianapolis qualifications, one of my favorite games of all time, and it might not be the most pure, might not be the best Indianapolis 500 game of all time. I'll give that to the 1989 rendition of Indianapolis 500 Simulation. So much replayability there. But IndyCar Racing 2005 has a mode for just the Indy 500 where you go and you qualify. You have a practice run, you set your car up for the weather, whatever anything's doing. Go out there, you set your 4-lap qualification run. On pole day, if you don't make the top 33 or you don't get pole and you're like midway through the field, it simulates in the bump day. And you watch the whole rest of the field. You sit there for about 15 minutes. Laps after laps go in. You get bumped to 34th. And you have to go out there again and try to qualify. It's just playing a video game on the original Xbox. It's the most stressed out I've ever been. And then you go set your 4 laps and it gets you like 32nd. And there's still 25 more cars left to qualify. And you're sitting there like, oh man, am I going to make the race? Am I going to make the race? And then you end up 35th. You're bumped out of the show, and you got to try it all again. There's no difficulty slider in that game. There's no easy mode. There's no normal. There's no hard. This is the game. You got to get good, and you got to try and make the Indy 500. And I spent years of my childhood just trying to make the Indianapolis 500. And by the time I was about 15, 16, the game was already over a decade old. I had finally made the Indy 500, and that was one of the happiest moments of my adolescence.
Gone Sovereign is checking in. Shout-outs to Indianapolis 500 Evolution. I loved the game. That one was one of my favorites. Now, I wore out multiple 3.5-inch floppy disks of Indianapolis 500, the simulation. That's what got me into PC gaming, or just gaming in general.
I got you a couple years ago, pretty much a paperweight at this point, but Indianapolis 500, the simulation, on an Atari game card.
Yes. It still sits on my desk, in fact.
Drove all the way, I drove out to Kent State, Ohio, to meet up with a couple buddies, just saw it sitting on the shelf of the Exchange, and drove it all the way back to Philadelphia just to drop it off before I finished the drive back home to New York. I drove like 4 hours out of the way.
And much appreciated, too.
That is what Indy means.
It's the race. My neighbor is very much not a sports guy, sports ball fan. He's the guy yelling touchdown in a baseball game. But we were talking about it the other night, and he's like, this is what actually jazzes you up, isn't it? And I was like, yeah, this one day of the year is everything. It makes... The worst day of the year is the day after. Memorial Day Monday. You gotta wait
a whole 365 days for it to happen again.
And you watch hours of practice and the storylines that develop. Graham Rahal's car was fast. It should not have been in the last row shootout. And yet there he was.
Graham Rahal, not only the storyline of this year, the storyline of it happened last year. He didn't even make the show last year. Graham Rahal, not take Graham out of it. A Rahal did not make the Indianapolis 500 last year, and almost didn't make it this year. Qualified 33rd on the grid. He is the last starting car on the grid. Marcus Ericsson, 2 years ago he won the Indy 500. This year had the fight on bump day to try and make it in.
Yes, and a huge shout out to Nolan Siegel. That kid has huevos.
They called it on the broadcast. It doesn't matter if you hit the wall or you don't make a run and you pull your foot out of the gas. You're not making the show. You have to keep your foot in it. And going into turn one, kept his foot in it. Car wasn't going to make the corner, and it didn't. But he kept his foot in it all the way to that outside wall.
And not what? A 24 hours earlier, upside down on the back straightaway. A huge hit, flipping. He was in the air almost 100 yards before landing on the roll hoop and the safety structures that protect the cockpit now, the aero screen.
A crash that 20 years ago, 25 years ago, would have been fatal.
Quite possibly, yeah. Very similar to Rick Mears' wreck in 1992. That's when he decided to retire. Literally, he's talked about the fact, he said, I'm upstairs, my head's scraping the ground, I'm on the roll bar, and I'm going, all I'm thinking to myself is, I don't need this shit. And that was it. That's when he made the call that, okay, I'm done. I'm going to hang it up and retire. And he did at the end of the season. It was those moments. You just kind of know when it's time. That was Rick Mears in 92. But talking a little bit of Silver Crowd here as we are down to 7 laps to go in a race that has been absolutely dominated by Thomas Lewandowski since the restart. Brandon Buckberger is closing as, oh man, we're not going to go 3 wide, are we? Robbie Swad, Laura Gerhardt very quickly catching Derek Love.
If you want to see 3 wide action here at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, though, May 31st, we have the Vintage Indy here. Every generation of IndyCar possible. You will have a DW12 going on the high side, a Lotus 79 in the middle, and a Lotus 49er sprint car absolutely dead sideways on the bottom side, taking up 2 lanes. You might as well be 4 wide at that point, all at the same time entering turn number 1. It is absolutely stupid, wild, outrageous. If you have an iRacing subscription and you are not driving that race, there is something wrong with you.
That is correct. Let me see. I won't be able to pull it up. We do have an intro. We did a Delta Force intro for the first year. Man. And it was...
We'll use that intro because it is just so good.
It is absolutely epic. Modified from the text of Paul Page's Delta Force intro. It was actually the 1991 Delta Force intro. So good. So now
these are ordinary men doing extraordinary things.
Yeah, well, yes. To use the quote from, oh my gosh, Ken Squire, the late great Ken Squire. Common men doing uncommon things. And that is every bit what is going on here at Indy and Charlotte. I don't know that you can say the F1 guys are common anymore, but...
My favorite thing to do when I go for a long drive is I play on Spotify. They have the old school retro MRN broadcasts from the 80s, 70s, even going back a couple of them from the 60s. Just listening to Ken Squire call those races and driving down the road, I could close my eyes. You shouldn't close your eyes while driving, by the way. But just visualize what was happening on the racetrack at that point. Just a legend with using his words and being able to paint a picture just with his voice.
Ken Squire and the late, great Marty Hall. That was my childhood growing up. And taking a look here, Chris Wett's making a move on Josh Batista for 3rd. This is the battle for the final spot on the podium with 3 laps to go, this time by the start-finish line. Chris Wett's running that way inside lane. Oh, Derek Love with a huge slide off of 4. Wow. If Laura Gerhardt wasn't there, Derek Love might have hit the attenuator.
Definitely in the attenuator. Derek Love, you got to fly over to Germany. You are Laura Gerhardt a bear.
This is the battle for the race lead.
Buckberger has caught Lewandowski. Has Lewandowski burnt off those tires? Has he been pushing the car so hard that those things are overheated? Buckberger gets super loose out of 3 there, but it's going to be close here. 3 laps to go.
It'll be 2 this time by the start-finish line. Batista with a huge
slide.
Watson with a big slide.
These cars are driving like absolute pieces of garbage. And that is what IndyCar racing should be. These are the embodiment of what IndyCar racing should have become if they never grew wings. Too much horsepower, not enough tired, dog crap driving cars. If you're a good driver, you'll be in the lead.
What a corner exit by Buchberger out of 2. He almost pancaked the wall, but it was all pull off the corner. He's right there. It's less than a car length between Lewandowski and Buchberger.
I wish we had the version of the Speedway before they grew grass there, separating from pit entry. I wish they could take these cars below that white line.
White flag in the air.
Down there, side by side across the line.
Go. Buchberger inside of Lewandowski for the win at Indy. They'll stay side by side out of 1.
Lewandowski's going to have the advantage exiting the corner down the 3/4 mile long drag race into turn number 3. Can Lewandowski get clear and block Buchberger in the 3? Buchberger goes way to the inside.
What a battle! They're still
side
by side to the north end of the speedway for the final time. Buchberger inside, Lewandowski on the outside.
Lewandowski almost into the wall.
Both cars twitch on corner exit. They're still side by side.
1/4 mile left to go. Out of turn number 4, side by side. It's going to be a drag race.
Who's it going to be at the line? It is.
Oh, it's too close to call.
Oh, that's so close. It's Lewandowski by 2/1000ths of a second.
Oh, I can't believe it. Buchberger gave it every ounce he could.
2/1000ths separating Thomas Lewandowski from Brandon Buchberger. What a finish! Let's get the focus cameras fired up for this one. We're going to show you the entire final lap of this race.
I could have sworn Lewandowski had it. With the modern wing car era, if you're on the inside going into turn number 4, it is yours. If you go on the inside in turn number 1, usually you're clear by the exit. No, these guys in the Silver Crowns, they are side by side the entire lap.
What a race. Shades of 1989. Emerson Fittipaldi and Al Unser Jr.
This is a battle of balls here. The fact that Lewandowski could stay in it, the way he brought it up all the way to the outside, almost kissed it there, kept the momentum up in the turn number 4. He is losing right here out of 4, but kept the momentum up, ends up winning the drag race. They are neck and neck all the way till they get up to the line.
Slow it down for you. Oh, well, let's see.
Well, let's stop there.
Ah, wrong button.
Now we're looking at nothing.
Alright. We'll try this one again. I jumped on the button a little too early, but this is the run down to the start-finish line. And there it is. Thousandths separating Brandon Buchberger. Wow. Just an incredible finish between Thomas Lewandowski and Brandon Buchberger. Let's go and talk to our race winner first, Mr. Thomas Lewandowski. Thomas, congratulations. At one point, the lead nearly 2 seconds. Was this just a case of burning the tires off the car a little early, or what was it? Because the car looked so good so early, and then Brandon just put on a heck of a charge.
Yeah, well, I pushed really hard early to break the draft. because it's just if you can break the draft, it's so much of an advantage. So I was pushing really hard early to do that, and then Brandon was kind of staying in the bubble where he wasn't getting any draft, and then you could tell instantly when he picked up it because he gained like 2.5 tenths at one lap on me. I think it was something ridiculous. So I mean that's pretty much what that was. I just right front was screaming for mercy there at the end of the race, but we held on barely.
Yeah, and then you guys made what is one of the greatest final laps that the virtual Indianapolis Motor Speedway has ever seen. 2 wide all the way around this place. Both of your cars are squirrely. How do you guys not wad the cars up in that scenario?
Just a lot of faith in each other. Like we've raced like that, quite a few times now, and you just kind of hope that the other person doesn't get on the gas a little too hard, and like off of 4 especially, the cars were very very edgy, and I just had to be a little patient with the throttle because if I got loose on exit, I could have just hooked him head on into the outside wall. But
yeah, and then now we start to look ahead here to the final week of the season coming up. The points battle was 164 points entering the night. We don't have results yet from second split, so the points haven't updated, but I would imagine you're feeling pretty good about potentially claiming another championship here as we head off to Gateway in just 7 days' time.
I think it's Darlington, but
oh yeah, Darlington. Sorry, I misread.
Well, either way, I like both tracks. I feel feeling pretty good. I've been pretty lucky this season not to get too bad of breaks. Yeah, like and Watkins Glen obviously wasn't great, but the strength of field there is so low that it's pretty much guaranteed to be a drag week for everyone, anyways. So, I mean, one of these seasons, I'm just going to run into a whole bunch of bad luck, and I can't really say much about it when it happens because I've been lucky here to, have a bunch of seasons in a row where I just went my way.
Well, this one definitely has for sure. 14 starts, 8 wins, 11 top 5s. Just a phenomenal run this season so far. Congratulations, Thomas, on the big win here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Give us all those sponsor plugs and shout-outs you have before we let you go here, too.
I just got to, thank, Marcus Lindsay over Joel, John, Larry, who's not having his late model debut this week. It'll be next week because he has some power steering issues, I guess, on his car. But I'm wishing him the best up in Nova Scotia. And, thanks to you guys for putting on these amazing broadcasts for us. Can't thank you enough.
All right, buddy. Well, thank you much. We appreciate the kind words from you. And now let's bring in our runner-up finisher tonight. Brandon, I'm calling this right now. Take whatever tally you've put together and add $100 to it because the NRN crew is going to put up $100 to Driven to Save Lives for an absolutely incredible performance. How did you catch Thomas Lewandowski from nearly 1.6 seconds back with 15 laps to go?
White knuckle driving. I just threw the jacker all the way to -10 and held on to it. And I started sniffing the draft, and then with about 3 to go, I caught him. And I gave myself a little bit of breather because I was running out of breath there. And I decided to make a run for it on the last lap. And I don't know if I needed a side draft or something, but that was one hell of a race. I'm glad that Thomas didn't stink up the show there at the end, and I gave you guys something to watch there. And I appreciate that $100 donation to Driven to Save Lives right there. That's cool. That's what racing should be right there. Just white knuckle driving like that and running for the win like that.
We were very closely following the battle from 3rd through 6th. Those 4 cars were trying to wad it up for the last 10 laps or so. I looked at the timing and scoring window and went, holy crap, he's 2 tenths back. You get that point where you've caught the draft. Now you know you're going to reel him in. What starts to go through your head at that point? Do you start thinking ahead to how you're going to set the move up, or do you really have to kind of stay in the moment with just how terribly these things drive late in the race?
A little bit of both, but with 3 to go there when I caught him, I realized it was a two-man race. I didn't have to worry about, looking in my mirror at all. I was just trying to figure out when to make the move and how to do it. And, I didn't want to completely clear him off too, because I knew like he could cross me over, but that I wasn't able to begin with. And I think I was just sideways and out of 4, and I think that little bit just did it. But I was close, but it was fun. I mean, I love racing Tom. Him and I can race each other like that, and we know how to race each other, and we respect each other and give each other room. I know he gives me a little bit of crap sometimes because I always make fun of him for like, oh, you're always winning, putting me down in the dumps or whatever. But I have a really fun time racing him, and he deserved it. He had the better car, I think.
Well, one way or the other, an incredible drive from you tonight, Brandon. Congratulations on the runner-up finish. And before we let you go here, do all those sponsor plugs and shout-outs for us.
It's going to be a long one this week. Obviously, you guys for broadcasting, thank you for that $100 donation. I'll probably throw $20 for this second place here instead of the 10. I think this is only my second donation or third donation this year out of this season. I've been been consistent, but just not up there. But that was fun. I want to thank all the guys at Happy Camp Speedway. I want to congratulate my buddy Nate. He actually won a pit bike race Saturday night at the local dirt track, so that was kind of cool to see. So I know he's going to give me crap on that because he won and I didn't this week. But you know what? What comes around goes around. We'll get him once in a while here. Bob, Scotty, Nate, Madison. Kendall might be watching too. Just all those boys back at Happy Camp Speedway. We're going to have some fun this summer with those go-karts.
All right, buddy. Well, thank you very much. We appreciate you coming to hang out with us up here in the booth. And, man alive, what an absolutely incredible show out of Brandon Buchberger. And now we get to talk to a new face for the first time here on the National Racing Network airwaves. Chris Wetz piloted car number 6, the Solo Jazz paint scheme, to a third-place finish. How did you not wad all of those cars up? It seemed like you, Josh, Jeffrey, and James were absolutely edge of your seats for those final 10 laps or so.
I'll be honest, I don't really know. I'm still really getting used to this car. That's only the third time I've ever raced it, and it gets very tight inside of another car, and I really had to do a lot of lifting to stay off those guys. It was a really tight battle.
Wait, you're a newbie here to the Silver Crown car.
Yeah, I think that's my only third official race in it.
At one of the hardest tracks to drive this thing, getting yourself a third-place finish. Absolutely fantastic job tonight.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And then when everything clicks, holy cow, man, this guy's going to be really good. What's it like getting used to this car? I mean, you picked up 11 spots from where you started, so obviously still working some of the kinks out in qualifications and getting things really up to speed. But, man alive, it seemed like the car was really good to drive.
It was. I definitely had a better setup this week. I was completely out to lunch at IRP, but yeah, I drive pretty much every car on the service, so I get used to a lot of different cars. But this car is a challenge because it's so tight on entry and it's so loose off the corner. It really is difficult to get used to.
Well, you're getting used to it quite well, that is for sure. Congratulations on a fantastic drive here tonight, Chris. And before we let you go, get into the sponsor plugs and shout-outs that you'd like to get in here.
Really just Bar Visuals. They sponsor me on the eNASCAR Road to Pro stuff.
Well, very cool. That's good to have new names, new sponsors, all sorts of fun people we get to talk about. Make sure you send me a DM with your sponsors so I can make sure we shout them out too on these broadcasts as well. But Chris, thank you very much. We appreciate you coming to hang out in the booth with us here for a minute. And man, Bizzle, I thought we were going to have a stinker. I really did. I saw Lewandowski absolutely running away with this thing, disappearing into the Midwestern late spring sky, and all of a sudden it was like all hell broke loose.
I am usually the one that hates coming to the Speedway. I have very publicly discussed how much I dislike this track, and I was actually looking forward tonight. The Silver Crowns put on a good show here. This is what the Speedway was built for. These are the cars that are meant to race at this track. Screw those Indy cars, take the wings off them, add 1,000 horsepower. That's what should be here. These Silver Crowns put on damn near the show that they should have. if not surpassed it. I mean, a 2,000th of a second finish here tonight, possibly the closest finish we've ever seen here on the National Race Network. As much as I hate to say it, India's badass.
Yes, it is. It is everything you would want and more in a racetrack, and we're going to have a whole lot more racing coming up for you here this week on the National Racing Network before we get to do all the fun stuff. Tomorrow night, it is a doubleheader. The sprint cars visiting Concord Speedway, since they're down for the Coke 600 weekend. Nice call there by Jeffrey Stanton, getting Concord on the schedule. That race will air 9 p.m. Eastern
Absolutely.
Daylight Time. Love that racetrack. Little badass triangle.
Freaking short track.
Awesome.
It's a Copart lot anymore. We'll never, I don't want to say never, the track is still there. But we will most likely never ever see cars hitting that track at race pace ever again. But it is preserved here on the iRacing platform. It is my favorite track to take anything short track to. It's Minito, man.
Even things that were not short track. I think we ran the IRO1s there in the Dallara Extreme Series, running like 9-second laps or something stupid like that.
They were like 8-second laps. It was stupid fast. Cars should not go 190 miles an hour at Concord. But we did it.
It was fun. And then the season finale for the TNT Shock Series. Do not miss this one. Brian Labarge and James Watson are separated by a handful of points heading into the final race. It is basically, it's Watson's championship to lose at this point. But we saw something very similar last season. Lap 1, turn 1, Watson saw his championship dreams go up in smoke. He's trying to change that again here this season.
Doing the math, the only thing Watson has to do, Watson can finish 25th as long as Brian Labarge finishes 26th. Watson just has to finish ahead of Brian Labarge, and it's his championship. Brian, there are about 8 different scenarios where he has to finish X amount of positions above Watson. So if Brian finishes 7th, Watson finishes 8th, it's still Watson's championship. Brian finishes 6th, Watson finishes 8th, it's Brian's championship. Wes Shire is also the 3rd and final car mathematically eligible. Now, it would take damn near a DNF for both Labarge and Watson in Tuesday night's race, but it is not impossible for Wes to win the championship. And I'll say it right now, I am this confident in the bet. I will forgive Wes Shire's Bratwurst debt to me. Holy cow, that is a tongue twister. If he wins the championship.
Wow, that's a lot of bratwurst. It's up to several thousand at this point.
It's up to about 17 bratwurst, which is at $8 a bratwurst at Lime Rock. That's a lot of dough.
That is correct. And then Thursday night, Bizzle will be on the call in the production for the USF Pro Championships at Virginia International Raceway. It kind of stinks that I won't be able to call that one, but I will be down in Kannapolis, North Carolina, working the Earnhardt Outdoors Showdown for Legends cars hooning around the streets of Kannapolis, North Carolina. It's going to be a fun show. We'll post details up on the stream links once we have them. And then it is Memorial Day weekend. It's not just about racing, and we'll talk a little bit more about that tomorrow night, but know the reason for the weekend and know the reason for the day on Monday is what I will say to you tonight here on that subject. But with that, it is time for Bizzle and I to get the heck on out of here. It has been a fantastic show, and thank you all so much for tuning in with us. For Patrick Byrne and everybody else here at the National Racing Networks that get these shows on the air for us, my name is Chris Graham. We truly do appreciate you coming to hang out with us. We hope to see you all tomorrow night. Until then, have a great night, everybody.